The tech world called Aria Bennett a nobody, an awkward shadow hiding behind her brilliant boyfriend's success. But when she stepped onto that stage in front of 500 investors and exposed the man who'd been stealing her work for 3 years, she wasn't trembling anymore. The single father standing beside her had already saved her life once that night. Now she was about to destroy the career of Seattle's most dangerous rising executive, live on camera, while the entire industry watched. Some stories start with a rescue. This one started with a rooftop, a fall that never happened, and a secret that couldn't stay buried. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And stay until the end, because what happens next will break your heart before it puts it back together. Ethan Cole didn't believe in corporate theater. Not anymore. He stood near the back wall of the Grand Cascade Ballroom, arms folded, watching Seattle's tech elite perform their usual choreography of false humility and calculated power moves. Crystal chandeliers, open bars, speeches about innovation that meant absolutely nothing. Everyone here wore ambition like cologne, too much of it, applied in all the wrong places. Ethan had stopped caring about that world years ago. He came to these summits for one reason only: money. Enough to keep the lights on. Enough to make sure his daughter never wondered if they'd be okay. The rest of it? The networking, the handshakes, the game of who knows who? He left that garbage behind the day he became a single father. Mr. Cole, a woman in a sleek pantsuit appeared at his elbow, tablet in hand. Your presentation on adaptive threat detection is scheduled for tomorrow at 9. We'll need your slides uploaded by midnight. Already done. She blinked. Oh, thank you. Most of our speakers wait until the last minute. I don't wait for anything I can finish early. Ethan's tone wasn't rude, just factual. He glanced at his watch. 7:43. If he left now, he could still read Mila her bedtime story over video call before she fell asleep. The woman smiled politely and moved on. Ethan scanned the room one more time, already planning his exit route, when something caught his attention. Not something, someone. A young woman stood near the far corner of the ballroom, half hidden behind a decorative column, clutching a champagne flute like it might explode. She looked about 27, maybe 28, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, oversized blazer that didn't quite fit her frame, black frame glasses slipping down her nose. She looked terrified. Ethan wouldn't have noticed her at all if it weren't for the three men circling her like sharks. "Come on, Arya," one of them said, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Just admit it. You didn't actually design the neural framework. You just helped Damien with the documentation, right?" The woman, Arya, shook her head quickly. "No, I built the entire back-end architecture. Damien only presented the—" "Sure you did." Another man laughed, cutting her off. "That's why your name's buried at the bottom of the credits while Damien's giving keynote speeches." The third man leaned in closer, smirking. "Sweetheart, nobody believes the quiet girl in the corner actually created EtherCore. You're cute, but you're not that smart." Arya's face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, then stared down at her shoes like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. Anger, maybe. Or recognition. He knew what it looked like when someone was being erased in real time. Before he could think better of it, he started walking. The men were still laughing when Ethan stepped into their circle. He didn't say anything at first, just positioned himself between them and Arya, close enough that they had to acknowledge his presence. The tallest one frowned. "Can we help you?" "You're blocking the exit," Ethan said calmly. "We're having a private conversation." Didn't sound private. Ethan glanced at Arya. Her eyes were wide, confused, like she couldn't understand why a stranger had just inserted himself into her humiliation. "You good?" She nodded quickly, too quickly. "I'm fine." "She's fine," the tall man repeated, his tone sharpening. "So unless you've got business here—" "I do, actually." Ethan turned back to him, expression flat. "I'm here to tell you that you're making yourself look like an idiot in front of a room full of people who'll remember it tomorrow." The man's face flushed. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Ethan didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. "If you've got a problem with her work, take it up with HR. Otherwise, move." For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the tall man forced a laugh, glancing at his friends. "Wow. Okay. Didn't realize she needed a bodyguard." "She doesn't need anything from you." Ethan stepped aside, gesturing toward the crowd. Walk away. The men exchanged glances, clearly weighing whether it was worth escalating. Finally, the tall one shrugged and muttered something under his breath before walking off. His friends followed. Ethan waited until they were gone before turning back to Arya. She was staring at him like he'd just pulled her out of traffic. You didn't have to do that, she said quietly. I know. I mean it. I can handle... They weren't going to stop. Ethan kept his tone even. Not harsh, but not soft either. And you shouldn't have to handle that in the first place. Arya blinked, then looked away. Thank you. Don't mention it. He started to leave, but her voice stopped him. Wait. Ethan turned. Arya hesitated, gripping her champagne glass with both hands now. You're Ethan Cole, the cybersecurity consultant. I read your white paper on zero trust architecture last year. He raised an eyebrow. You actually read that? Twice. A faint smile crossed her face, brief but real. It was brilliant. It was boring. It was necessary. She paused. I'm Arya Bennett. I work for Helios Tech, or I used to. I'm not sure anymore. Used to? She shook her head quickly. It's complicated. Ethan studied her for a moment. There was something about the way she held herself, like she was constantly bracing for impact, like she'd learned a long time ago that the world wasn't going to be kind. So she made herself as small as possible to avoid getting hit. He recognized that too. You built Ether Core, he said. Not a question. Arya's eyes widened. How did you, Because nobody fights that hard to dismiss someone unless they're afraid of what happens if people start believing them. Ethan glanced toward the men who'd been harassing her. They were laughing near the bar now, already moving on. They know you did it. That's why they're trying to bury you. Arya swallowed hard. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to believe me anyway. Maybe not tonight. Not ever. Her voice cracked slightly. I don't have proof. I don't have anything. Ethan didn't respond right away. He just looked at her, really looked, and saw the exhaustion behind her eyes. The kind that didn't come from one bad day. The kind that built up over months, years. You should leave, he said finally. She frowned. What? This event. These people. Whatever's happening here, it's not worth staying for. I can't just leave. My boyfriend is the guy who's taking credit for your work? Arya flinched. He's not. It's not like that. Then what's it like? She didn't answer. Ethan sighed. He wasn't good at this. Comfort, connection, small talk. He'd lost the ability to care about strangers the day his ex-wife walked out and left him holding their daughter's hand. But something about Arya made him want to stay, just for a second longer. Look, he said quietly, I don't know you, and I don't know what's going on in your life. But if someone's stealing from you, you don't fix it by standing in the corner hoping they'll stop. Then how do you fix it? You make them stop. Arya stared at him, something uncertain flickering across her face. Then she looked down at her champagne glass, still untouched. I'm not like you. Like me? Strong, confident. Someone people actually listen to. She laughed bitterly. I'm the girl nobody notices until they need someone to blame. Ethan shook his head. You're wrong. About what? Nobody noticed me either, he said. Not until I stopped waiting for permission to matter. Before Arya could respond, a voice called out from across the room. There you are! They both turned. A man in an expensive navy suit was striding toward them, all polished charm and perfectly styled hair. Mid-30s, handsome in the way that came from money and good lighting. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Damien Vale. Ethan recognized him immediately. Everyone in the room did. Rising executive, TED Talk darling, the face of Helios Tech's AI division, and apparently Arya's boyfriend. I've been looking everywhere for you, Damien said, stopping beside Arya. He slipped an arm around her waist, possessive. Then he glanced at Ethan, smile tightening. And who's this? Ethan Cole, Arya said quickly. He was just leaving, Ethan finished. Damien's smile widened. Cole, the security guy. I've heard of you. Freelancer, right? consultant. Same thing. Damien's tone was friendly, but there was an edge underneath it. Thanks for keeping my girl company. I'll take it from here. Ethan didn't move. He looked at Arya. You okay? She nodded, but her shoulders had gone tense the moment Damien touched her. I'm fine. Great. Damien's hand tightened slightly on her waist. So we're all good here. Ethan held his gaze for a long moment, then he stepped back. Have a good night. He turned and walked away, weaving through the crowd toward the exit. He didn't look back, but as he pushed through the glass doors into the cool Seattle air, something gnawed at him. The way Arya had flinched when Damien touched her. The way she'd said I'm fine in the exact same voice she'd used when those men were humiliating her. Ethan pulled out his phone and checked the time. 8:15. If he caught a cab now, he could still make it home before Mila's bedtime. He started walking toward the curb, then stopped, turned around. Through the ballroom windows, he could see Damien leading Arya toward the back terrace. His hand was still on her waist, her head was down. Ethan stood there for a full 10 seconds, telling himself it wasn't his problem. Then he cursed under his breath and walked back inside. The terrace was nearly empty when Ethan stepped outside. Just a few clusters of executives smoking cigars, voices low and conspiratorial. The Seattle skyline stretched out beyond the railing, all glass and steel and glittering lights. And there, near the far edge, he saw them. Damien had Arya backed against the railing. He wasn't yelling, wasn't making a scene, but his body language said everything, leaning in too close, one hand gripping her arm, his voice a sharp whisper that Ethan couldn't quite hear. Arya's face was pale. She was shaking her head, trying to pull away, but Damien's grip didn't loosen. Ethan didn't think. He just moved. Let her go. Damien spun around, eyes flashing. Are you kidding me right now? Let her go. For a moment, Damien just stared at him. Then he released Arya's arm and stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Relax, man. We're just talking. Didn't look like talking. Yeah? Well, it's none of your business. Damien's smile was gone now, replaced by something colder. This is between me and my girlfriend. Ethan ignored him. He looked at Arya. You want to stay here? She hesitated, glancing between them. Damien, I think I should... You're not going anywhere, Damien snapped. Then he caught himself, forced his expression back into something softer. Baby, come on. Don't do this. Not here. I just need some space. Space? Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. After everything I've done for you, after I put your name on the project credits, even though you barely contributed? Arya flinched. That's not... You'd still be stuck in QA testing if it weren't for me. His voice dropped lower, sharper. And you want to embarrass me in front of a stranger? Ethan felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard men like Damien before, smooth, controlled, the kind who knew exactly how to make someone feel small without raising their voice. She's leaving, Ethan said flatly. Damien turned on him. Who the hell do you think you are? Someone who's done being polite. Oh, that's rich. Damien stepped closer, sizing him up. You think you can just walk in here and play hero? You don't know anything about us. I know enough. Do you? Damien's smile returned, sharp and venomous. You know she's unstable? That she has panic attacks every other week? That half the team thinks she's a liability? Damien, stop! Arya's voice was barely a whisper. I've been covering for you, Damien continued, ignoring her. Making excuses, protecting your reputation. And this is how you repay me? Ethan didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at Damien with the kind of cold, steady patience that came from years of not giving a damn about people who thought they mattered. Walk away, Ethan said quietly. Right now. Damien hesitated. For just a second, uncertainty flickered across his face. Then he forced another laugh and stepped back. You know what? Fine. Have her. He looked at Arya, expression twisting into something cruel. Good luck dealing with her baggage. You're going to need it. Then he turned and walked back inside, slamming the terrace door behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan turned to Arya. She was staring at the ground, trembling, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold the pieces together. You okay? He asked. She didn't answer, just kept staring at the concrete. Arya. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have. I didn't mean for. Stop. She looked up, eyes red. You don't apologize for him, Ethan said. Not to me. Not to anyone. Arya's breath hitched. He's right, though. I am unstable. I do have panic attacks. I don't care. You should, her voice cracked. Everyone else does. Ethan stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. What he just did? That wasn't normal. That wasn't okay. He was just upset. I embarrassed him by... No. Ethan's tone was firm. He embarrassed himself. And he's been doing it for a long time, hasn't he? Arya closed her eyes. I don't know. Yes, you do. She didn't respond. Just stood there shaking, looking like she might fall apart any second. Ethan exhaled slowly. He wasn't a therapist. He wasn't even particularly good with people, but he knew what it looked like when someone was drowning. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get you out of here. I can't. I have to... Damien's my ride. I don't have a car. I'll call you a cab. I don't have any cash. I'll pay for it. Arya stared at him, confused. Why are you doing this? Because someone should. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then slowly, she nodded. Ethan pulled out his phone and ordered a car. While they waited, Arya leaned against the railing, staring out at the city lights. He's going to be so angry, she said quietly. Let him. You don't understand. He knows people, powerful people. He could destroy my career. Only if you let him. Arya laughed bitterly. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, Ethan said, but it's possible. The car arrived 10 minutes later. Ethan walked her down to the lobby, made sure she got in safely, then watched the taillights disappear into the Seattle night. He stood there for a while, hands in his pockets, trying to figure out why he'd just spent the last hour getting involved in someone else's mess. Then his phone buzzed, a text from his babysitter. Mila's asking for you. She won't go to sleep. Ethan sighed, hailed another cab, and headed home. He didn't think about Arya Bennett again that night, but he would. Soon. Because 3 days later his phone would ring with a blocked number, and the voice on the other end would be hers, panicked, breathless, desperate. Ethan, I need your help. Someone's trying to kill me. Ethan didn't sleep well that night, or the next. Mila noticed. She always noticed. Daddy, you look sad, she said over breakfast, swinging her legs under the kitchen table. Her cereal was more milk than flakes now, but she kept stirring it anyway. I'm not sad, sweetheart. You have your thinking face. Ethan smiled despite himself. My thinking face? Yeah, the one you make when you're trying to fix something. She tilted her head, studying him with the kind of seriousness only 6-year-olds could pull off. Did someone break something important? Maybe. Can you fix it? I don't know yet. Mila nodded, satisfied with that answer. Then she went back to her cereal, humming a song from some cartoon Ethan had never bothered learning the name of. He watched her for a moment, feeling the familiar weight settle back onto his shoulders. This was his world now. Breakfast, school drop-offs, bedtime stories, contract work that paid enough to keep them comfortable but didn't ask him to care about anything bigger than the next invoice. It was small, quiet, safe. And it was enough. It had to be. Because 6 years ago, when his ex-wife walked out and left him standing in an empty apartment with a screaming infant, Ethan made himself a promise. Mila would never wonder if she was wanted. She would never question whether she was enough. Everything else could burn, as long as she was okay. So why the hell was he still thinking about Arya Bennett? He didn't owe her anything. Didn't know her. She'd probably already forgotten about him by now, gone back to whatever complicated mess she'd built with Damien Vale. Not his problem, not his life. Ethan finished his coffee, grabbed Mila's backpack, and drove her to school. Back. The call came on Thursday. Ethan was in the middle of a penetration test for a mid-sized fintech company when his phone buzzed. Blocked number. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. On the 4th call, he answered. This better be important. Ethan. The voice was shaky, barely controlled. It's Arya. Arya Bennett. From the summit. He straightened in his chair. What's wrong? I don't know who else to call. I'm sorry. I know you don't... Slow down. Where are you? My apartment. Belltown. Someone broke in last night. They didn't take anything, but they left. Her breath hitched. They left a file on my laptop. It has my medical records, therapy notes, private emails, things nobody should have access to. Ethan's pulse quickened. Did you call the police? I can't. Damien, he works with half the precinct. If I report this, he'll know. And if he knows, you think he's behind it. Silence. Arya. I don't have proof, she whispered. But yes, I think it's him. Ethan stood, already closing his laptop. Send me your address. I'm coming over. You don't have to. Address. Now. She sent it. Ethan grabbed his keys and jacket, texted his babysitter to pick up Mila from school, and headed out. Belltown was a 15-minute drive in light traffic. He made it in 10. Arya's building was one of those modern high-rises with too much glass and not enough character. Ethan buzzed up, and she let him in without a word. Her apartment was small but neat. Minimal furniture, bookshelves crammed with technical manuals and science fiction novels. A single potted plant struggling near the window. Arya stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself. She looked worse than she had at the summit, pale, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Show me the file, Ethan said. She led him to her laptop. It was sitting open on the kitchen table, screen still lit. Ethan sat down and scrolled through the contents. Medical records, therapy transcripts, personal emails dating back 3 years, photos, text messages. Even her therapy intake forms from when she was in college. All of it organized, cataloged, time-stamped. Jesus, Ethan muttered. Someone's been watching me, Arya said quietly, for a long time. How long have you and Damien been together? 3 years. Ethan's jaw tightened. This isn't surveillance, this is control. What do you mean? He's building a profile, collecting leverage. Ethan pointed at the screen. This isn't about breaking in, it's about showing you what he has, making sure you know he can use it whenever he wants. Arya sank into the chair beside him. Why would he do that? Because you're a threat. I'm not. You built EtherCore, Ethan said, the thing that made him famous. And if people found out the truth, his career would collapse overnight. Arya stared at the screen, hands trembling. So what do I do? You fight back. With what? I don't have anything. No proof, no connections, no... You have the truth. Ethan turned to face her. And you have me. She blinked. What? I'm good at finding things people don't want found, he said. If Damien's dirty, there's a trail, and I'll find it. Arya shook her head. You can't just, why would you help me? You don't even know me. You're right. I don't. Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms. But I know what it looks like when someone's being erased, and I'm not going to sit here and watch it happen. Arya stared at him for a long moment, then her eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to fight him. Then I'll teach you. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. I don't have money to pay you. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? Ethan thought about Mila, about the promise he'd made 6 years ago. I want you to stop apologizing for existing, he said quietly, and I want you to take your life back. Arya's breath caught. For the first time since he'd arrived, something shifted in her expression. Not hope, exactly, but something close. Okay, she whispered. Okay, Ethan echoed. He stood, pulling a flash drive from his jacket. I'm going to copy this file and run a forensic trace. See if I can figure out where it came from. In the meantime, you need to change all your passwords, enable two-factor authentication, and don't tell anyone, and I mean anyone, what we're doing. Arya nodded. What if Damien finds out? Then we move faster. She stood, following him to the door. Ethan. He paused. Thank you, she said, for believing me. Ethan met her eyes. Someone should have believed you a long time ago. Then he left. And as he drove back across the city, one thought kept circling through his mind. This wasn't just about stolen credit or corporate fraud anymore. This was about survival. And if Damien Vale wanted a war, Ethan was going to give him one. The forensic trace took Ethan 3 days. 3 days of digging through server logs, metadata timestamps, and encrypted file transfers while Mila sat at his kitchen table doing homework and asking why he looked so tired all the time. "Just work stuff, sweetheart," he'd say, not entirely lying. "Is it important work?" "Yeah, it is." She'd nod, satisfied, and go back to her math problems while Ethan traced digital breadcrumbs that all led back to the same place, a private server registered to a shell company in Delaware. The kind of setup people used when they didn't want their name attached to something. By Saturday morning, Ethan had enough. He called Arya. "We need to talk," he said, "in person." She met him at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, far enough from Helios Tech that they wouldn't run into anyone she knew. She looked better than she had on Thursday, less pale, more present, but there was still a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Ethan slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" Arya asked. "Proof." She opened it slowly. Inside were printouts of server logs, transaction records, and email chains showing a pattern of data exfiltration dating back 18 months. All of it pointed to the same source, Damian Vale's personal cloud account. Arya's hands started shaking. "He's been stealing from the company," Ethan said quietly. "Not just your work, financial data, client lists, proprietary algorithms. He's been selling it to competitors through a third-party broker." "That's—" Arya's voice faltered. "That's corporate espionage." "Yeah. And he's been covering his tracks by routing everything through your credentials." Her head snapped up. "What?" "Every breach ties back to your login." Ethan pointed at the timestamps. "If anyone investigates, they'll find your digital fingerprints all over this. You're the fall guy." Arya stared at the papers, face draining of color. I would never—" "I know, but he's been setting this up for months, maybe longer." Ethan leaned forward. "Arya, if this goes public and you don't have proof that he framed you, your career is over. You'll be facing criminal charges." She pressed her palms against her eyes. "I can't breathe." "Yes, you can. Look at me." She lowered her hands. Her breath was coming too fast, shallow and uneven. "In through your nose," Ethan said calmly. "Out through your mouth. Slow." Arya tried, failed, tried again. "That's it. Keep going." It took a full minute before her breathing steadied. When she finally looked at him, her eyes were red but clear. "Sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I can't believe he'd—" She stopped, shaking her head. "Actually, I can. I just didn't want to." Ethan waited. "He used to be different," Arya said quietly. "When we first met, he was charming, supportive. He made me feel like I mattered." She laughed bitterly. "I should have known it was too good to be true." "When did it change?" "About a year ago, right after I finished the EtherCore prototype." She stared at the table. "He started asking me questions, technical questions, how the neural network processed data, how the encryption layers worked. I thought he was just interested in my work. He was interested in stealing it." Arya nodded slowly. "And I just handed it to him, like an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You trusted someone you loved." "Same thing." Ethan didn't argue with that. He'd learned the same lesson 6 years ago when his ex-wife walked out. Trust was just another word for vulnerability, and vulnerability got you hurt. "What do I do now?" Arya asked. "We build a case, gather more evidence, find out who he's selling to and how much he's made. And then? Then we destroy him." Arya looked up sharply. "I don't want revenge, I just want this to stop." "It's not revenge," Ethan said. "It's survival. If we don't move first, he will. And when he does, you won't have a chance to fight back." She was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded. "Okay. What do you need from me?" "Access to Helios Tech's internal network. Can you get me in remotely?" "Maybe. But their security protocols are—" "I've dealt with worse." Arya hesitated. "If we get caught, we won't." "You can't promise that." "You're right, I can't." Ethan met her eyes. "But I can promise I won't let you go down for something you didn't do." Arya stared at him, something unreadable crossing her face. Then she pulled out her laptop. "I'll set up a VPN tunnel," she said. "It'll take a few hours." "That's fine. I've got time." She started typing, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. Ethan watched her work, noticing the way her entire demeanor shifted when she was focused on code. The nervousness disappeared, the hesitation. She became someone else entirely, sharp, confident, precise. This was the version of her that built EtherCore, the version Damien had been trying to erase. Done, Arya said finally. You'll have access until midnight. After that, the system resets and you'll need a new token. That's enough. She closed her laptop, then looked at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you really doing this? Ethan frowned. I told you. No, I mean, why you? Arya leaned back in her chair. You're a cybersecurity consultant. You work alone. You've got a kid. This isn't your problem. So why risk getting involved? Ethan thought about that. He could have given her the easy answer, the one about doing the right thing, about standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. But that wasn't the whole truth. 6 years ago, my wife left, he said quietly. No warning, no explanation. Just packed her bags while I was at work and disappeared. Left me with a 6-month-old and a mortgage I couldn't afford. Arya's expression softened. I'm sorry. Don't be. She did me a favor. Ethan stared at his coffee cup. But for a while after that, I was angry. At her, at myself, at the whole damn world. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what I could have done differently, what I should have seen coming. And eventually I realized it didn't matter, because the people who hurt you don't do it by accident. They do it because it serves them, and the only way to stop them is to make it cost more than it's worth. Arya was quiet for a moment. Is that what we're doing? Making it cost? Yeah, Ethan said. That's exactly what we're doing. She nodded slowly. Then she smiled, small but genuine. Your daughter's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. They sat there for a while, not talking, just existing in the same space. It was strange, Ethan thought. He'd only known Arya for a week, but there was something familiar about her, something that made him want to keep showing up. Maybe it was because she reminded him of himself back when everything fell apart. Or maybe it was because she reminded him that some people were still worth fighting for. His phone buzzed, a text from his babysitter. Mila's asking when you're coming home. Ethan stood. I need to go. Okay. Arya stood too. When should we? I'll call you tomorrow, once I've had a chance to dig through their network. Be careful. Always am. He left the coffee shop and headed home, mind already running through the next steps. But as he drove, another thought crept in. This was getting complicated, and complicated was dangerous, especially when you had a 6-year-old waiting for you at home. Bashak. By Sunday night, Ethan had mapped out Helios Tech's entire internal infrastructure. Servers, databases, employee access logs, financial records, everything. And buried deep inside their archives, he found something that made his blood run cold. A folder labeled Project Reset. Inside were hundreds of files, medical records, psychological evaluations, personal emails, all of them belonging to Arya Bennett. But it wasn't just surveillance, it was a character assassination blueprint. Damien had been collecting every mistake Arya had ever made, every vulnerable moment, every private conversation where she'd admitted to struggling with anxiety or depression. He'd organized it into a narrative designed to paint her as unstable, unreliable, and dangerous. And at the bottom of the folder was a draft press release. Helios Tech terminates employee following security breach investigation. The company has determined that former AI engineer Arya Bennett was responsible for unauthorized data transfers to competing firms. Ms. Bennett, who has a documented history of mental health issues, is currently under investigation by federal authorities. It was dated for next week. Ethan sat back in his chair, jaw tight. Damien wasn't just framing her. He was planning to destroy her publicly before she ever had a chance to speak. Ethan pulled out his phone and called Arya. She answered on the second ring. Did you find something? Yeah, and it's worse than we thought. He told her everything. The files, the press release, the timeline. Arya didn't say anything for a long time. Arya? I'm here. Her voice was hollow. I don't know how to process this. We don't have time to process. We need to move now. How? Even if we have proof, he'll just deny it. He has lawyers, connections. I have nothing. You have the truth, Ethan said, And you have the one thing he can't fake. What's that? The ability to prove you actually built EtherCore. Arya went quiet again. Then, the source code. Exactly. If you can demonstrate live that you understand the architecture better than anyone else, including him, it doesn't matter what lies he tells. The evidence speaks for itself. But how do I get people to listen? We make them listen. Ethan, there's a shareholders gala next Saturday, he said. Damien's scheduled to give the keynote. If we can get you on that stage and expose him in front of everyone, he won't be able to bury it. That's insane. Probably. We'll never get past security. We will if you're listed as a presenter. Arya laughed, but there was no humor in it. And how do we do that? You still have access to the event management system? Maybe. I don't know if my credentials... Check. He heard the sound of typing, then a sharp intake of breath. I'm still in the system, Arya said. But if I add myself to the schedule, Damien will see it immediately. Not if you do it the day of, right before the event starts. That's cutting it close. That's the point. He won't have time to react. Arya was silent for a long moment. Then, what if it doesn't work? What if I freeze up there? What if... Then I'll be right beside you, Ethan said, and we'll figure it out. Why do you keep doing this? Doing what? Believing in me when I don't believe in myself. Ethan thought about Mila, about the way she looked at him like he could fix anything, even when he had no idea what he was doing. Because someone has to, he said quietly. Arya's breath hitched. Okay, let's do it. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Ethan smiled. That's the spirit. They spent the next hour planning, logistics, timing, contingencies. By the time they hung up, Ethan felt the familiar weight of a mission settling into his bones. This was going to be messy, but messy was better than sitting back and watching someone get erased. Critique. The next few days blurred together. Ethan balanced contract work with evidence gathering, spending his nights digging through encrypted files while Mila slept. He found transaction records showing Damien had sold proprietary code to 3 different competitors for a combined total of $2 million. Found emails where he'd coached other executives on how to manipulate employee reviews. Found text messages where he'd explicitly discussed framing Arya for the breaches. It was enough to end his career, if they could get it in front of the right people. On Wednesday, Arya came over to Ethan's apartment for the first time. She'd been hesitant about it. I don't want to intrude on your space with Mila. You're not intruding. She's at a friend's house for a play date. Arya showed up with her laptop and a flash drive containing every piece of code she'd ever written for EtherCore. They spent 3 hours building a presentation, one that would demonstrate beyond any doubt that she was the system's true architect. This section here, Arya said, pointing at the screen, this is the neural weighting algorithm. It's the core of the entire system. Damien doesn't understand how it works. He just knows it does. Can you prove that? Watch. She pulled up a live demo environment and started typing. Code appeared on the screen, fast and precise, building a working model in real time. Ethan watched, fascinated. You just built that from scratch? It's muscle memory at this point. Arya smiled slightly. I've written this algorithm so many times I could do it in my sleep. And Damien can't. Damien can barely write a for loop without Stack Overflow. Ethan laughed. Then we've got him. Arya's smile faded. What if it's not enough? What if people still don't believe me? Then we make them believe. How? By not giving them a choice. Arya looked at him, something uncertain flickering in her eyes. Then she glanced around the apartment, taking in the sparse furniture, the stack of Mila's drawings on the fridge, the single photo on the wall, Ethan and Mila at the park, both smiling. You're a good dad, she said quietly. I try. No, I mean it. She's lucky. Ethan shrugged. I'm the lucky one. Arya hesitated. Can I ask what happened? With your ex? Not much to tell. She didn't want to be a mom, didn't want the responsibility. He stared at the photo. I think she thought it would be different, easier, and when it wasn't, she just left. That must have been hard. It was. But Mila made it worth it. Arya nodded slowly. I don't think I could do what you do, Raise a kid alone, balance everything. You make it look easy. It's not easy. I just don't have a choice. Still, Arya looked down at her hands. I can barely take care of myself. I can't imagine being responsible for someone else. You're tougher than you think. I'm really not. Yeah, you are. Ethan leaned back. You survived 3 years with Damien. You built something incredible while he was tearing you down. And now you're about to walk onto a stage and take your life back. That's not weakness, Arya. That's strength. She looked up, eyes glistening. I'm scared. Good. Means you're paying attention. What if I fail? Then we try again. And if that doesn't work, then we keep trying until it does. Arya laughed, wiping her eyes. You're annoyingly optimistic, you know that? I prefer realistically stubborn. They worked for another hour before Arya finally closed her laptop. I should go, she said. You've done enough for me already. You're not a burden, Arya. I feel like one. Well, you're wrong. Ethan stood, walking her to the door. Saturday. We end this. She nodded. Saturday. But as she left, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go very wrong, because people like Damien didn't go down quietly. And when they fell, they took everyone with them. Kick. Friday morning, Ethan got a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something told him he should. Mr. Cole. The voice was smooth, confident, familiar. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Damien? I was hoping we could talk, man to man. I don't have anything to say to you. That's a shame, because I have quite a bit to say to you. Damien paused. I know what you've been doing. The digging, the evidence gathering, the little plan you and Arya have cooked up for tomorrow night. Ethan's pulse quickened, but his voice stayed calm. Then you know you're finished. Am I? Damien laughed. See, that's where you're wrong, because while you've been playing detective, I've been preparing for this exact scenario. Good for you. I've already spoken to our legal team, filed a preemptive restraining order against Arya. She comes within 500 feet of me or any Helios property, she's arrested on the spot. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. You can't do that. I just did, and I've got 3 witnesses willing to testify that she's been stalking me, harassing me, making threats. That's a lie. Is it? Because I have emails, voicemails, text messages, all of them from her, all of them increasingly erratic. Damien's tone turned cold. Face it, Cole, you're out of your depth. This isn't some cybersecurity puzzle you can solve with a few lines of code. This is my world, and in my world, I win. Not this time. We'll see. Damien paused. I'll make you a deal. Walk away now, and I won't destroy you. Keep pushing, and I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I'll make sure every client you've ever had knows you're a liability. I'll make sure... Ethan hung up. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. He took a long breath, then called Arya. We've got a problem. He told her about the restraining order, the fabricated evidence, Damien's threats. Arya's voice was small when she finally spoke. It's over, isn't it? No. Ethan, if I can't even get into the building, then we change the plan. How? Ethan thought fast. The gala's being live-streamed, right? Yeah, to all the major investors. Then we don't need you in the building. We just need you on camera. I don't understand. We hijack the stream. You present your evidence remotely. They can't stop you if you're not physically there. Arya went quiet, then, that's insane. Got a better idea? No. Then we're doing it. She laughed, nervous, shaky, but real. You're really not going to let this go, are you? Not a chance. Okay. Arya exhaled slowly. Let's burn it all down. Ethan smiled. Now you're talking. Ethan spent Friday night explaining to Mila why he had to work on Saturday. But you promised we'd go to the aquarium, she said, bottom lip jutting out in that way that usually broke his resolve. I know, sweetheart, and we will. Just not tomorrow. You always say that. I mean it this time. Mila crossed her arms, looking so much like her mother in that moment that Ethan felt something twist in his chest. Is it because of the sad lady? Ethan blinked. What? The lady who came over with the computer. Mila tilted her head. She looked sad, like when I'm sad but trying to pretend I'm not. Sometimes his daughter saw too much. Yeah, Ethan admitted. It's because of her. She needs help with something important. Is she in trouble? Sort of. Mila thought about that for a moment, then she nodded, serious. Okay, you should help her. You're not mad? I'm a little mad. But Daddy, you always tell me we should help people when they need it, even when it's hard. Ethan pulled her into a hug, throat tight. When did you get so smart? I was always smart. You just don't notice because I'm little. He laughed despite himself. Fair point. Mila pulled back, studying his face. Daddy, is the sad lady going to be okay? I'm going to make sure she is. Promise? Ethan hesitated. He'd learned a long time ago not to make promises he couldn't keep, but looking at his daughter's face, he found himself saying it anyway. Promise. Mila smiled, satisfied, and went back to coloring. Ethan watched her for a moment, then pulled out his phone and texted his sister. Can you take Mila tomorrow night? Something came up. The response came a minute later. Again? You're pushing it, little brother. I know. I'll explain later. Fine. But you owe me dinner. Deal. Ethan set his phone down and stared at the stack of evidence files on his kitchen table. Transaction records. Email chains. Source code. Everything they needed to end Damien Vale's career. If it worked? If they didn't get caught? If 100 other things didn't go wrong first? He shook his head, pushing the doubt away. No room for that now. Tomorrow, they were going to war. But Saturday arrived too fast. Ethan dropped Mila off at his sister's place by noon, ignoring the suspicious look Rebecca gave him. You look terrible, she said, blocking the doorway. Thanks. I'm serious, Ethan. When's the last time you slept? I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like you're about to do something incredibly stupid. Ethan almost laughed. Would you believe me if I said I wasn't? Not even a little bit. Then I won't bother lying. He kissed Mila on the forehead. Be good for Aunt Becca, okay? I'm always good, Mila said cheerfully. Rebecca snorted. Sure you are, kiddo. She looked back at Ethan, expression softening. Whatever you're doing, be careful. Always am. Also a lie. Ethan didn't argue. He just hugged his daughter one more time and left. By 3 o'clock, he was at Arya's apartment with 2 laptops, a digital encoder, and a plan that had about a dozen ways to fail. Arya answered the door looking like she hadn't slept either. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing an oversized sweater that made her look even smaller than usual. You ready for this? Ethan asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They set up in her living room, running cables between laptops and testing the video feed. The live stream for the gala was being broadcast through Helios Tech's corporate server, which meant Ethan needed to intercept the signal and reroute it through Arya's feed without anyone noticing. Simple, in theory. How long do I have? Arya asked, watching him configure the encoder. 5 minutes? Maybe 10 if we're lucky. That's not a lot of time. Then talk fast. Arya laughed nervously. What if I mess up? You won't. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. Ethan looked up from the screen. Because you've been doing this your whole life, writing code, solving problems, building things nobody else can build. This is just another problem. This problem involves public speaking in front of 500 investors while my abusive ex-boyfriend watches. Okay, fair, that part's new. Arya sank onto the couch, wrapping her arms around herself. What if he's right? What if nobody believes me? Then they're idiots. Ethan, I'm serious. You have the evidence, you have the proof, you have the ability to demonstrate live that you built EtherCore. The only way this doesn't work is if people choose not to believe you. And if that happens, it's on them, not you. Arya stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. Okay, Ethan echoed. They worked in silence for the next hour, testing connections and running through the presentation one more time. Arya's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady as she rehearsed her lines. At 5:30, Ethan's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Last chance to walk away, Cole. After tonight, there's no going back. Damien. Ethan deleted the message without responding. Who was that? Arya asked. Nobody important. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. By 6 o'clock, they were ready. The live stream would start at 7. Damien's keynote was scheduled for 7:15. That gave them 15 minutes to get into position. You should eat something, Ethan said, nodding toward the kitchen. I can't, I'll throw up. Then drink water, stay hydrated. Arya grabbed a bottle from the fridge and took a sip, then immediately set it down. I can't do this. Yes, you can. No, I really can't. My hands are shaking. My heart's going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I feel like I'm going to pass out. That's adrenaline. It'll pass. What if it doesn't? Ethan stood, crossing the room to stand in front of her. Look at me. She did. You're terrified right now, I get it. But you know what? Damien's terrified too, because he knows what happens if you get on that stage. He knows he loses everything. He's not scared of me. Yeah, he is. That's why he's been trying so hard to keep you quiet. That's why he built an entire fake case against you. That's why he called me yesterday, threatening to destroy my career. Ethan's voice was steady, grounding. He's scared because you're the one person who can prove he's a fraud. And tonight, you're going to do exactly that. Arya's breath hitched. What if I freeze? Then I'll be right here, and I'll talk you through it. You can't do it for me. No, but I can make sure you're not alone. She stared at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. Then she nodded. Okay, let's do this. Beat. At 7 o'clock, the live stream went live. Ethan watched the feed on his laptop as the camera panned across the Grand Cascade Ballroom. It was packed. Executives in tailored suits, investors in designer dresses, everyone who mattered in Seattle's tech scene. And there, near the front, sat Damien Vale. He looked every bit the rising star. Perfectly styled hair, expensive watch, that same confident smile he'd worn the night Ethan first met him. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. He looks so calm, Arya whispered, staring at the screen. He won't be soon. The opening remarks started, some VP droning on about quarterly earnings and market expansion. Ethan tuned it out, focused on the technical side. He had one shot at this. If the signal dropped or the reroute failed, they were done. At 7:12, the VP wrapped up. And now, she said, smiling at the camera, please welcome Helios Tech's Director of AI Innovation, Damien Vale. The room erupted in applause. Damien stood, buttoning his jacket, and walked toward the stage. Ethan's fingers moved across the keyboard. 3 commands. That's all it took. The screen flickered. Damien froze halfway up the steps, frowning. The live stream cut to black for a second. Then Arya's face appeared on the screen. She was sitting in her living room, laptop in front of her, looking directly into the camera. Her hands were clasped tightly together, knuckles white. But her voice, when she spoke, was clear. My name is Arya Bennett, and I need to tell you the truth about EtherCore. The room went silent. Damien's face drained of color. Arya took a shaky breath and continued. 3 years ago, I designed and built the neural framework that powers EtherCore. I wrote every line of code. I developed the encryption protocols. I created the adaptive learning algorithms that make the system work. But the man standing on that stage right now took credit for all of it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Damien Vale didn't build EtherCore, Arya said. He stole it, and he's been stealing from this company for over a year. Someone in the audience shouted something. Ethan couldn't hear what. Arya pulled up a screen share displaying the financial records Ethan had found. Transaction logs, email chains, encrypted server access showing Damien selling proprietary code to competitors. This is proof, Arya said, voice gaining strength. Proof that he's been committing corporate espionage. Proof that he's been funneling company secrets to outside buyers. And proof that he's been setting me up to take the fall for his crimes. Damien finally moved. He turned toward the camera, face twisted in fury. Turn it off. Turn the stream off now. But nobody moved. Everyone was staring at the screen. Arya switched to a live coding environment. I know some of you won't believe me, so I'm going to prove it. Her fingers started flying across the keyboard. Code appeared on the screen, building line by line, a neural network taking shape in real time. This is the core algorithm that powers EtherCore's decision-making framework, Arya said. It took me 8 months to develop, and I can rebuild it from memory right now because I wrote it. She kept typing, narrating each step. explaining the logic, the structure, the design choices that made the system unique. It was mesmerizing. Even the executives who didn't understand code could see it. The fluency, the confidence, the intimate knowledge of something she'd built with her own hands. Damien was shouting now, pointing at the AV booth. I said turn it off! But the feed stayed live. Arya finished the algorithm and ran a test. The output matched EtherCore's signature perfectly. Damien can't do this, she said quietly. He doesn't understand how this system works. He never did, because he didn't build it. I did. The room erupted. Investors were standing, executives were shouting, cameras were flashing, and Damien stood frozen in the middle of it all, his carefully constructed empire crumbling in real time. Then he did something Ethan didn't expect. He ran, straight toward the exit, shoving people out of the way. He's running, Arya said, voice panicked. Ethan, he's... I see it. Ethan was already moving, grabbing his jacket. Keep the stream going. Don't stop talking. Where are you going? To make sure he doesn't disappear. Ethan bolted out of the apartment and down the stairs, phone pressed to his ear as he dialed 911. I need to report corporate espionage and attempted fraud, he said, climbing into his car. The suspect is Damien Vale. He's currently fleeing the Grand Cascade Ballroom in downtown Seattle. The operator asked for details. Ethan gave them everything, the evidence, the live stream, the location. Units are being dispatched, she said. Tell them to hurry. Ethan gunned the engine and pulled into traffic, weaving between cars. The ballroom was 15 minutes away. If Damien had a car, he could be gone in 5. Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from Arya. They're asking questions. What do I say? Tell them the truth. All of it. What if they don't believe me? They will. Just keep going. Ethan tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and focused on driving. He ran 2 red lights and cut off a delivery truck, earning a blast of the horn. He didn't care. Damien wasn't getting away. Not tonight. By the time Ethan reached the ballroom, police cars were already pulling up. He parked illegally and ran toward the entrance. Inside, chaos. People were shouting. Security was trying to restore order. Investors were demanding answers. And there, near the back exit, 2 officers had Damien cornered. He was yelling at them, gesturing wildly. This is insane. I'm the victim here. That woman is unstable. She's been stalking me for months. Sir, you need to calm down. I am calm. I'm telling you, she faked all of it. The emails, the transactions, everything. She's trying to destroy my career because I ended our relationship. Mr. Vale. One of the officers stepped closer. We've reviewed the evidence being broadcast right now, and we have some questions. Damien's face went pale. I want my lawyer. That's your right, but you're coming with us. They cuffed him. Damien's eyes swept the crowd, searching. Then they landed on Ethan. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Damien smiled, cold, vicious. You think you won? You have no idea what you just started. Yeah, I do, Ethan said calmly. I ended you. The officers led Damien away, and the crowd slowly began to disperse. Ethan pulled out his phone and called Arya. She answered immediately. Is he? They got him. He heard her breath catch. It's over? Not yet, but it's close. I can't believe we actually... Her voice broke. Ethan, I can't breathe. I think I'm having a panic attack. You're okay. You're safe. Just breathe. I can't. Yes, you can. In through your nose. Count to 4. He heard her trying, struggling. Then slowly, the breathing evened out. That's it, Ethan said. You did it, Arya. You took your life back. She laughed, shaky, disbelieving. I really did, didn't I? Yeah, you really did. They stayed on the line for a while, neither of them speaking, just existing in the same moment, the adrenaline slowly draining away. Finally, Arya said, Thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You didn't have to do any of this. You didn't owe me anything, but you showed up anyway. Ethan leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Someone had to. I'm glad it was you. He smiled. Me too. By the time Ethan got back to Arya's apartment, it was almost midnight. She was still sitting on the couch, laptop open, reading the flood of messages that had come in after the broadcast. Reporters, investors, former colleagues. They're calling it the biggest scandal in Seattle tech history, she said, looking up as he walked in. Sounds about right. Helios Tech's board is meeting tomorrow. They want me to testify. You going to?
I think so, yeah. Arya closed the laptop. This is really happening, isn't it? Yeah, it is. She stood, pacing. I don't know what to do now. I mean, what comes next? Do I go back to work? Do I quit? Do I just start over? You do whatever you want, Ethan said. That's the point. You're free now. Arya stopped pacing, turning to look at him. I couldn't have done this without you. You did most of it yourself.
No, I didn't. She crossed the room, standing in front of him. You made me believe I could, and that made all the difference. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. They stood there in the dim light of her apartment, the weight of the night settling around them. What happens now? Arya asked quietly. With us, I mean. Ethan hesitated. He'd been so focused on the mission, on getting her through this, that he hadn't thought about what came after.
I don't know, he admitted. Do you want to know? He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in 6 years he felt something shift. Yeah, he said. I think I do. Arya smiled, small, uncertain, but real. And for the first time since the night on the terrace, she didn't look scared anymore. Just tired, relieved, and maybe, just maybe, hopeful. Me too, she whispered. They didn't kiss, didn't make grand declarations.
They just stood there, two people who'd survived something neither of them thought they could. And that, for now, was enough. Outside, the city lights glittered. Inside, something new began to take shape. Fragile, uncertain, but real. And real was all they needed. The media storm hit by Sunday morning. Ethan woke to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and a news alert on his phone. Helios Tech executive arrested following explosive fraud allegations. He sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes, trying to process the fact that they'd actually pulled it off. Then his phone rang again. Arya. Have you seen the news? She asked, voice tight. Just woke up to it. They're calling me a whistleblower, a hero. There are reporters outside my building. She laughed, but it sounded fragile. I can't leave my apartment. Don't. Stay inside. Don't talk to anyone. What if they don't go away? They will. Eventually. Ethan swung his legs out of bed. You need to lay low for a few days. Let the lawyers handle the press. I don't have lawyers. You will. Helios Tech's board is going to want you protected. You're their star witness now. Arya went quiet for a moment, then, this doesn't feel real. It is real, and it's going to get messy before it gets better. How messy? Damien's lawyers are going to come after you. They'll try to discredit your testimony, dig up anything they can use against you. It's going to be ugly. Great. Arya's voice cracked slightly. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. I know. I thought once we exposed him, it would be over. The exposure part is over. The fallout's just getting started. Arya sighed. I really hate that you're right. Get used to it. I'm right a lot. She laughed despite herself. Annoyingly confident, remember? Realistically stubborn, Ethan corrected. They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Ethan showered, made coffee, and was halfway through checking his email when his sister called. You're on the news, Rebecca said without preamble. Ethan frowned. What? Local station. They're showing footage from the gala. You're in the background of one of the shots. She paused. Want to tell me what the hell you've been doing? It's complicated. Ethan, I helped someone. That's all. That's all? You helped take down one of Seattle's biggest tech executives. That's not exactly small potatoes. It needed to be done. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then, this is about that woman, isn't it? The one you've been meeting with. Her name's Arya. Is she worth it? Ethan thought about the way Arya had looked last night, terrified but determined, standing up to the man who'd been erasing her for 3 years. Yeah, he said. She is. Okay then, Rebecca's tone softened. Just be careful. Mila needs you in one piece.
I know. Does Arya know about Mila? She's met her once, briefly. And? And what? And is this going somewhere, or are you just playing hero? Ethan rubbed his temples. I don't know yet. We'll figure it out, because if you're going to bring someone into Mila's life, it needs to be someone who's going to stay. I know that too. Good. Rebecca paused. Mila's asking for you, by the way. She wants to know if the sad lady is okay now. Ethan smiled despite himself. Tell her yes. The sad lady's okay. You tell her. Come pick her up. She misses you. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up, finished his coffee, and headed out. On the drive to Rebecca's place, his phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, he answered immediately. Mr. Cole, this is Patricia Huang from Helios Tech's legal department. We'd like to schedule a meeting with you regarding the events of last night. I'm listening. We're prepared to offer you a consulting contract. Significant compensation. We need someone we can trust to conduct a full security audit of our systems. Ethan had been expecting this. How significant? She named a figure that made him blink. That's generous, he said carefully. We value discretion and competence. You've demonstrated both. Patricia's tone was all business. We'd also like to discuss protective measures for Ms. Bennett. Given the circumstances, we believe she may be at risk. At risk from who? Mr. Vale has retained one of the most aggressive defense firms in the state. They're going to try everything to discredit her testimony. We want to make sure she's protected. What kind of protection are we talking about? Legal representation, security detail if necessary, relocation assistance if she requests it. Patricia paused. Ms. Bennett is critical to our case. We can't afford to lose her. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. She's not a chess piece. I'm aware, but she's also not safe right now, and I think you know that. He did. I'll talk to her, Ethan said, but any decisions are hers to make, not yours, not mine. Understood. Can we schedule a meeting for tomorrow? I'll get back to you. He hung up and drove the rest of the way in silence, mind racing. This was getting bigger than he'd anticipated, messier, more complicated. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that maybe Rebecca was right. Maybe he should have stayed out of it. But then he thought about Arya standing in her apartment last night, finally believing she deserved to fight back. And he knew he'd make the same choice again. But Mila ran into his arms the moment he walked through Rebecca's door. Daddy, you're back! Ethan lifted her up, holding her tight. Hey, sweetheart, miss me? So much. Aunt Becca wouldn't let me stay up late, and she made me eat vegetables. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Because vegetables are good for you. They're gross. Life is full of disappointments, kid. Get used to it. Mila giggled, and Ethan set her down. Go grab your stuff. We're heading home. She ran off, and Rebecca stepped closer, lowering her voice. You look tired, she said. I am tired. Is it over? Whatever you were doing. The main part, yeah. And the rest? Ethan shrugged. Still figuring that out. Rebecca studied him for a long moment. Then she reached out and squeezed his shoulder. Just don't lose yourself in someone else's mess, okay? You've got a kid who needs you. I'm not losing myself. Good. Because I'm not raising Mila if you do something stupid and get yourself killed. I'm not going to get killed. Famous last words. Mila came barreling back with her backpack, effectively ending the conversation. Ethan thanked his sister, buckled Mila into the car, and drove home. On the way, Mila chattered about her weekend, about the movie she'd watched, the pancakes Aunt Becca had made, the fort they'd built in the living room. Ethan listened, letting her voice wash over him. This was what mattered. This was what he'd been protecting all along. Daddy? Mila said suddenly. Yeah? Is the sad lady still sad? Ethan glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. I think she's feeling a little better. Good, because being sad is hard. It is. Did you make her happy? Ethan thought about that. I think I helped her remember how to make herself happy. Mila nodded, satisfied. That's good. You're good at helping people. Thanks, sweetheart. Can she come over again? I liked her. Ethan felt something warm settle in his chest. Maybe. We'll see. Okay. They got home and Ethan made dinner while Mila spread her homework across the kitchen table. It was normal, comfortable, safe.
But as he watched his daughter work through her math problems, he couldn't stop thinking about Arya, about the way she'd looked at him last night, about the fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was space in his life for something more than just survival. His phone buzzed, a text from Arya. Lawyers showed up. They want me to sign a bunch of papers. Should I? Ethan called her. Don't sign anything yet, he said. Let me look at it first. They said it's just standard protection stuff. I don't care what they said. I want to read it before you sign. Arya hesitated. You don't trust them? I don't trust anyone when it comes to legal documents. Send me photos of the contracts. Okay. She paused. Ethan, they're offering me money, a lot of it, compensation for emotional distress and lost wages. How much? She told him. Ethan whistled low. That's not compensation. That's a settlement. What's the difference? Compensation is payment for damages. A settlement is payment for silence. You think they're trying to buy me off? I think they're trying to control the narrative. If you take their money and sign their NDA, you can't talk about what happened. Not to reporters, not to other companies, not to anyone. Arya went quiet. So what do I do? You get your own lawyer. Someone who works for you, not them. I can't afford that. They're offering you 6 figures. You can afford it. Not yet, I can't. Ethan sighed. Then hold off for now. Tell them you need time to review the documents. Don't commit to anything. Okay. She sounded small again, uncertain. Thank you. Stop thanking me. I can't help it. Try harder. She laughed softly. How's Mila? She's good. Asking about you, actually. Really? Yeah, she wants to know if you're still sad. What did you tell her? That you're getting better. Arya was quiet for a moment. I think I am. Getting better, I mean. Good. It's weird, though. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like Damien's going to find a way out of this and come after me again. He won't. You can't know that. Yeah, I can. Because he's done, Arya. His career's over. His reputation's destroyed. And even if he somehow beats the criminal charges, no tech company in the country will touch him. What if he comes after me anyway? Not professionally, personally. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then I'll deal with it. You can't protect me forever. Watch me. Arya's breath caught. You don't owe me that. I know. Then why? Because I want to, Ethan said simply. And because you deserve someone in your corner who's not going to disappear the second things get hard. Arya didn't respond right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything. Just let it be true. She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You're making this really hard to keep my emotional distance. You know that? Good. Stop trying. Ethan, I'm serious. You've spent 3 years making yourself smaller to survive. You don't have to do that anymore. I don't know how to be anything else. Then figure it out. You're smart enough. Arya laughed for real this time. You're infuriating. I've been told. They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Ethan finished making dinner, helped Mila with her homework, and put her to bed. As he tucked her in, she looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, do you like the sad lady? Ethan paused. Yeah, I do. Like. The way people do in movies? Maybe. I don't know yet. Mila considered this. If you like her, does that mean she'll be around more? Would that be okay with you? I think so. She seemed nice, and she's really smart. She knew all about computers. Ethan smiled. She is really smart. Then I think you should like her, because you're always happier when you're helping people, and she makes you do that a lot. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. I'll think about it, Ethan said, kissing her forehead. Get some sleep. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. He turned off the light and closed the door, then stood in the hallway for a long moment. Mila was right. He was happier. And that scared him more than anything else. Walk. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Damien's arraignment made national news. The charges kept piling up. Fraud, corporate espionage, theft of intellectual property, computer crimes. His lawyers fought back hard, filing motions to suppress evidence and attacking Arya's credibility at every turn. The media loved it. Ethan hated it. He watched Arya navigate the storm with a mix of admiration and frustration. She gave her testimony to the board, sat through hours of depositions, answered the same questions over and over while lawyers tried to twist her words into something they could use. And through all of it, she held her ground. But it was costing her. Ethan could see it in the way her hands shook when she thought no one was looking, the way she stopped eating properly, the way she'd text him at 2 in the morning because she couldn't sleep. He showed up every time. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just sat in silence while she worked through whatever panic was clawing at her that night. And slowly, something shifted between them. It wasn't dramatic, wasn't some big romantic moment. It was just presence. Showing up, being there, not leaving when things got hard. The kind of thing that mattered more than grand gestures ever could. 3 weeks after the gala, Arya called him crying. "They're dropping the espionage charges," she said, voice breaking. "Damien's lawyers made a deal. He's only facing fraud and computer crimes now." "That's still serious time. It's not enough. He destroyed my life, Ethan. He stole years from me. And he's going to get a slap on the wrist. 5 to 10 years isn't a slap on the wrist. It's not justice. Maybe not, but it's something. I wanted him to lose everything the way I almost lost everything. He did lose everything. His career, his reputation, his freedom. The only difference is you're still standing and he's not." Arya went quiet. Then, "I don't feel like I'm standing. I feel like I'm barely holding on." "That's because you're exhausted. You've been fighting nonstop for a month." "I can't stop. Not yet." "Yeah, you can. The legal stuff is out of your hands now. Let the lawyers handle it." "And what do I do?" "You rest. You figure out what you want your life to look like now that you're not constantly defending it." "I don't know what that looks like." "Then come over for dinner tomorrow. You can start by eating an actual meal." Arya laughed weakly. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "Not even a little bit." "Fine. What time?" 6. And bring comfortable clothes. Mila's been asking about you." "Really? Really?" Arya's voice softened. "Okay, I'll be there." She showed up at 6:15 wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, looking nervous. Mila answered the door, grinning. "You came." "I did," Arya said, smiling. "Is that okay?" "Very okay. Daddy made spaghetti. He's really bad at it, but don't tell him I said that." Ethan appeared in the hallway, dish towel over his shoulder. "I heard that." "Oops." Mila giggled and ran back to the living room. Arya stepped inside, glancing around. "Your place is nice. It's small, but it works. Small is good. Small is safe." They ate dinner at the kitchen table. Ethan's admittedly mediocre spaghetti, garlic bread, and a salad Mila refused to touch. The conversation was easy. Light. Mila talked about school, about her friends, about the science project she was working on. Arya listened, asking questions, genuinely interested, and Ethan watched the two of them, feeling something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. After dinner, Mila dragged Arya to the living room to show her the Lego castle she'd been building. Ethan cleaned up, listening to them talk through the doorway. "This is really impressive," Arya said. "How long did it take you?" 3 days. Daddy helped with the hard parts." "It looks like something out of a fairy tale." "That's because it is. It's the castle where the princess saves herself." Arya laughed. "That's my favorite kind of story." "Mine too. Daddy says waiting for someone to save you is boring. It's better to save yourself." "Your dad's a smart guy." "I know. He's the best." Ethan smiled despite himself. When he finished the dishes, he found them sitting on the floor, Arya helping Mila add a new tower to the castle. "You're good with her," he said. Arya looked up, surprised. "She's easy to be good with. She's amazing." "She likes you." "I like her too." Mila looked between them, then grinned. "Are you guys going to kiss now? That's what happens in movies." "Mila," Ethan said, voice somewhere between amused and mortified. "What? You said you liked her." Arya's eyes went wide. "You said what?" "Traitor," Ethan muttered at his daughter. Mila just giggled. Arya stood, face flushed. "I should probably—" "Stay," Ethan said. Please. She hesitated, then nodded. They put Mila to bed together, taking turns reading from her favorite book. When she finally drifted off, they retreated to the living room. I'm sorry about that, Ethan said. She's 6, no filter. It's okay. Arya sat on the couch, tucking her legs under her. Did you really tell her you like me? She asked. I answered. And do you like me? Ethan sat beside her. Yeah, I do. Arya stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. This is insane. A month ago, I was convinced my life was over. And now I'm sitting in your living room having a conversation about whether you like me. Is that a bad thing? No, it's just unexpected. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? I don't know yet. Arya looked down at her hands. I'm a mess, Ethan. I have panic attacks, trust issues, a history of making terrible decisions about men. You shouldn't want this. Maybe not, but I do. Why? Because you're brave and smart, and you didn't give up even when everything was falling apart. He paused. And because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm just surviving anymore. Arya's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. How to trust someone. How to let someone in. Then we'll figure it out together. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's possible. Arya wiped her eyes, laughing softly. You really are annoyingly optimistic. Realistically stubborn, Ethan corrected. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time in weeks she felt the knot in her chest start to loosen. They sat there for a long time, not talking, just being. And outside, the Seattle rain started to fall. Soft, steady, washing everything clean. The rain didn't stop that night. It kept falling through the week, turning Seattle's streets into rivers of reflected neon and washing the city clean in that way only Pacific Northwest rain could manage. Arya started coming over more often after that first dinner. Not every night, but enough that Mila stopped asking if she was visiting and started asking when she'd be back. It wasn't a relationship yet. Not officially. Just two people learning how to exist in the same space without old wounds getting in the way. Most nights they'd eat together, help Mila with homework, then sit on the couch after she went to bed and talk about nothing important. Movies, books, the weather. Small things that didn't require vulnerability but somehow built it anyway. Ethan learned that Arya liked her coffee black and hated mornings, that she'd wanted to be an astronaut when she was a kid, that she'd taught herself to code at 12 because her parents couldn't afford computer classes and the library had free internet. Arya learned that Ethan couldn't cook to save his life but refused to admit it, that he'd almost joined the military after high school but changed his mind when his mom got sick, that he still kept his ex-wife's number in his phone even though they hadn't spoken in 4 years, just in case Mila ever wanted to reach out. They didn't talk about Damien much. The trial was set for late spring, and Arya's lawyers had advised her to stay quiet until then. But sometimes, late at night when the panic crept back in, she'd text Ethan and he'd call her. They'd talk until her breathing evened out, until the fear loosened its grip. And slowly, over weeks that turned into months, something shifted. The first time Ethan kissed her, it wasn't planned. They were sitting on his couch, Mila asleep down the hall, some documentary about ocean ecosystems playing on mute. Arya had been quiet all evening, staring at her phone like it might explode. You okay? Ethan asked. Damien's sentencing hearing is tomorrow. I know. I don't think I can go. You don't have to. The prosecutors have everything they need. Arya shook her head. I should be there. I should watch him face consequences. Why? Because... She stopped, frustration flickering across her face. Because I need to see it end. I need to know it's really over. It's already over, whether you're in that courtroom or not. It doesn't feel over. Ethan shifted to face her. What would make it feel over? Arya thought about that. I don't know, closure maybe? Some kind of proof that I'm not still that scared girl he controlled for 3 years. You're not her anymore. How do you know? Because she wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. She'd still be making excuses for him. Arya's eyes filled with tears. I hate that you're right. Get used to it, she laughed despite herself, wiping her face. I'm a mess. Yeah,
But you're a mess who took down a corrupt executive and reclaimed her entire life. So I'd say you're doing pretty well. Arya looked at him then, really looked, and something in her expression changed. Thank you, she said quietly, for not running away when things got complicated. Things were already complicated when I met you. And you stayed anyway. Yeah, I did. They sat there in the dim light, the documentary still playing silently, rain drumming against the windows. And then Arya leaned forward and kissed him. It was tentative, uncertain, like she was testing whether this was allowed. Ethan kissed her back, gentle and unhurried, letting her set the pace. When they finally pulled apart, Arya's face was flushed. Sorry, she whispered. I should have asked first. Don't apologize. Was that okay? Yeah, that was okay. She smiled, small and fragile but real. Good, because I've been wanting to do that for weeks. Why didn't you? Because I was scared you'd realize I'm not worth the trouble. Ethan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You're worth the trouble, Arya. I don't know how you can say that. Because it's true. She kissed him again, less uncertain this time. And for a moment, everything else fell away. The trial, the fear, the weight of the past 3 years. It was just them, figuring it out, making mistakes, trying anyway. When they finally called it a night, Arya stood at the door, jacket in hand, looking back at him. I think I'm falling for you, she said quietly. Ethan's heart kicked against his ribs. Yeah? Yeah, and it terrifies me. Good. She frowned. Good? If it didn't scare you, it wouldn't matter. Arya stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll see you tomorrow? I'll be here. She left, and Ethan stood in the doorway watching her car disappear down the street. Behind him, a small voice said, You kissed her. Ethan turned. Mila was standing in the hallway, pajamas rumpled, hair sticking up in every direction. You're supposed to be asleep. I got thirsty, and then I saw you kissing the sad lady. Mila grinned. Does that mean she's your girlfriend now? I don't know yet. Do you want her to be? Ethan thought about the question. 6 months ago, he would have said no without hesitation. His life was simple, controlled, safe. But now? Yeah, he admitted. I think I do. Mila nodded seriously. Good, because she makes you smile more, and she's nice to me, and I think she needs us. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds. I think we need her too, Ethan said quietly. Mila hugged him. Then you should tell her that. I will. Now go back to bed. She ran off, and Ethan stood alone in the hallway, feeling the weight of what he'd just admitted settling over him. He was falling for Arya Bennett, and for the first time in 6 years, that didn't scare him. It just felt right. Damian Vale was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Arya didn't attend the hearing. She watched the news coverage from Ethan's couch, Mila sitting beside her, and when the verdict came through, she cried. Not from grief, not from anger, from relief. It's really over, she whispered. Ethan sat on her other side. Yeah, it is. 8 years. He'll serve 5 with good behavior, maybe less. Arya shook her head. I don't care anymore. He can't touch me now. That's all that matters. Mila reached over and patted her hand. You're very brave. Arya looked down at the little girl beside her, eyes bright. Thank you, Mila. My daddy says brave people are just scared people who don't give up. Your daddy's very smart. I know, Mila beamed. He's the best. That night, after Mila went to bed, Arya and Ethan sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker through the rain. I got an offer today, Arya said quietly. Ethan glanced over. What kind of offer? From a startup in San Francisco. They want me to head their AI ethics division. Good salary, full creative control. Equity package. That's huge. It is. So why do you sound uncertain? Arya was quiet for a moment. Because taking it means leaving Seattle, leaving everything I've built here, and leaving me. She met his eyes. Yeah, that too. Ethan felt something twist in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Is that what you want, to go? I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be good. A fresh start somewhere new. No memories of Damien, no reporters, just clean slate.
And the other part? The other part wants to stay. Because for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I belong somewhere. She looked down at her hands. I feel like I belong here. With you. With Mila. Ethan reached over and took her hand. Then stay. It's not that simple. Why not? Because we've only been together for a few months. What if this doesn't work out? What if I turn down this opportunity and we fall apart 6 months from now and I'm stuck here with nothing? What if we don't fall apart? You can't promise that.
No, I can't. Ethan turned to face her fully. But I can promise I'm not going anywhere. I can promise I'll show up every day and figure this out with you. And I can promise that if you stay, it won't be for nothing. Arya's breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you, Arya, and I want you to stay. Not because you're running from something, but because you're choosing something, choosing us. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Then take your time, but don't run just because you're scared. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she whispered,
I love you too.
Yeah? Yeah. She laughed, wiping her eyes. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love you. Ethan pulled her close, and she buried her face in his shoulder.
I'll stay, she said quietly. I'll turn down the offer. I'll stay here.
You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Ethan smiled against her hair. That's the spirit. They sat there for a long time, wrapped up in each other, listening to the rain. And somewhere in the distance, the city lights kept burning, proof that even in the darkest moments, something was always still glowing. Quote. 6 months later, Arya launched her own company. It wasn't huge, just her, 2 junior developers, and an office above a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. But it was hers. Bennett Solutions specialized in ethical AI development, building systems designed to protect user privacy instead of exploit it. The kind of work Arya had always wanted to do, but never had the freedom to pursue. Ethan helped her set up the security infrastructure, working nights and weekends to make sure her servers were bulletproof. Mila helped too, in her own way, drawing logos and making Arya promise to name the company mascot after her. The launch party was small, just a handful of friends, a few former Helios tech colleagues who'd stayed loyal, and a reporter from a local tech blog who'd been following Arya's story since the trial. Ethan stood in the back of the room, watching Arya give her speech. She was nervous. He could tell from the way she kept adjusting her glasses, but her voice was steady. A year ago, I didn't think I'd be standing here, she said. I didn't think I'd have a career, or a future, or any reason to believe that things could get better. She paused, glancing toward Ethan. But someone showed me that the hardest part isn't surviving the worst moments. It's believing you deserve to have good ones after. A few people clapped. Arya smiled. So this company isn't just about building better technology. It's about building a better version of ourselves. One that refuses to be erased. One that fights for what's right, even when it's terrifying. And one that remembers that we're stronger together than we ever could be alone. The applause was louder this time. Ethan felt something warm bloom in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or love. Probably both. After the speeches, Arya found him near the coffee station. How'd I do? She asked. You were perfect. I stumbled over the 3rd paragraph. Nobody noticed. I noticed. Then you're the only one. Ethan handed her a cup of coffee. You did good, Arya. Really good. She smiled, leaning into him. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yeah, you could have. You just would have had to work harder. She laughed, annoyingly confident, realistically stubborn. They stood there for a moment, watching the party unfold around them. Developers talking code, investors asking questions, Mila showing anyone who'd listened the drawing she'd made of the company mascot. I've been thinking, Arya said quietly. About? About what you said that night. About choosing something instead of running from something. Ethan glanced down at her. Yeah? I think I'm finally starting to understand what you meant. She looked up at him. For so long, I made decisions based on fear. What would hurt least? What would keep me safest? What would make other people happy? And now? Now I'm making decisions based on what I actually want. She reached up and kissed him softly. And what I want is this. You, Mila. This life we're building together.
Ethan's throat tightened. You sure about that?
Completely terrified. But yeah, I'm sure. He pulled her closer and she rested her head against his chest. Across the room, Mila caught sight of them and waved enthusiastically. Arya waved back, laughing. She's going to want to know when we're getting married, Ethan said. Are we getting married?
Eventually, yeah. If you want. Arya pulled back, eyes wide. Was that a proposal? No, that was a statement of intent. The actual proposal will be better. How much better?
You'll see, she grinned. I'm holding you to that. Good. They stood there a moment longer, wrapped up in each other, the party buzzing around them. And for the first time in her life, Arya felt something she'd never truly believed was possible. She felt safe. Not because someone had rescued her, but because she'd learned to rescue herself. And because she'd found people who would stand beside her while she did. 1 year after the launch, Arya's company had 15 employees and contracts with 3 major tech firms. It wasn't a unicorn startup, wasn't going to make her a billionaire, but it was sustainable, ethical, hers, and that was enough. Ethan proposed on the anniversary of the night they met, not at the Grand Cascade Ballroom because neither of them wanted to go back there. Instead, he took her to the rooftop of their favorite coffee shop, the one where they'd planned the takedown, where they'd spent hours strategizing and hoping and believing things could actually change. Mila was there too, holding a sign she'd made that said, "Will you marry my daddy?" In bright purple marker. Arya cried, said yes, kissed Ethan while Mila cheered. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with Rebecca and a handful of friends as witnesses. No big production, no cameras, just 2 people choosing each other in front of the people who mattered most. Mila was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously, marching down the aisle with perfect posture and a basket of rose petals she'd picked out herself. At the reception, a backyard barbecue at Ethan's place, Arya gave a toast. I used to think that love meant giving up parts of yourself to make room for someone else, she said, looking at Ethan. I thought it meant being smaller, quieter, less. She paused, smiling. But that's not love. That's just fear dressed up as compromise. Real love makes you bigger, braver, more yourself than you ever thought you could be. She raised her glass. So here's to the man who taught me that, and to the little girl who reminded me what it looks like to believe in good things. Everyone clinked glasses, and Mila beamed. Later, when the guests had gone home and Mila was asleep in her room, Arya and Ethan sat on the back porch watching the stars come out. Do you ever think about that night? Arya asked. On the terrace? Sometimes. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't shown up? Ethan thought about that. Yeah, but not for long. Why not? Because you're here now. That's all that matters. Arya leaned against him. I used to think my life was defined by the worst thing that ever happened to me, by the years I lost, the person I became while I was trying to survive. And now? Now I think it's defined by what came after, by the choice to fight back, to rebuild, to believe I deserved better. She looked up at him. And by the people who stayed when it would have been easier to leave. Ethan kissed the top of her head. I'm not going anywhere. I know. That's the best part. They sat there in the quiet, the Seattle night wrapped around them like a blanket. And in that moment, everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real was all they needed. Years later, when Mila was grown and Arya's company had expanded into something neither of them had imagined possible, people would ask Arya what the turning point was. When did things change? When did you stop being the victim and start being the hero of your own story? And Arya would always give the same answer. It wasn't one moment, it was 1,000 small ones. It was the night Ethan caught her before she fell, not because she needed saving, but because he refused to let her face it alone. It was every time she showed up, even when she was terrified. Every time she chose truth over silence. Every time she rebuilt instead of gave up. It was Mila asking why the sad lady looked sad, and then deciding she didn't have to be sad anymore. It was learning that strength wasn't about never being broken. It was about putting yourself back together, even when the pieces didn't fit the way they used to. It was understanding that you could lose everything and still be worth something, that you could be scared and brave at the same time, that love didn't mean giving up who you were.
It meant finding people who helped you become more of yourself. And it was realizing that sometimes the person who saves you is you. Everyone else just holds the door open while you walk through. Arya would finish her answer, and the interviewer would nod, satisfied. But the real truth, the one Arya kept close to her heart, was simpler than all of that. The turning point wasn't when someone believed in her, it was when she finally believed in herself. And that made all the difference. Because at the end of the day, that's what survival really means. Not just making it through, but deciding you're worth making it through for, and then building a life that proves it every single day. The rain didn't stop that night. It kept falling through the week, turning Seattle's streets into rivers of reflected neon and washing the city clean in that way only Pacific Northwest rain could manage. Arya started coming over more often after that first dinner. Not every night, but enough that Mila stopped asking if she was visiting and started asking when she'd be back. It wasn't a relationship yet. Not officially. Just two people learning how to exist in the same space without old wounds getting in the way. Most nights they'd eat together, help Mila with homework, then sit on the couch after she went to bed and talk about nothing important. Movies, books, the weather. Small things that didn't require vulnerability but somehow built it anyway. Ethan learned that Arya liked her coffee black and hated mornings, that she'd wanted to be an astronaut when she was a kid, that she'd taught herself to code at 12 because her parents couldn't afford computer classes, and the library had free internet. Arya learned that Ethan couldn't cook to save his life but refused to admit it, that he'd almost joined the military after high school but changed his mind when his mom got sick, that he still kept his ex-wife's number in his phone even though they hadn't spoken in 4 years, just in case Mila ever wanted to reach out. They didn't talk about Damien much. The trial was set for late spring, and Arya's lawyers had advised her to stay quiet until then, but sometimes, late at night when the panic crept back in, she'd text Ethan and he'd call her. They'd talk until her breathing evened out, until the fear loosened its grip. And slowly, over weeks that turned into months, something shifted. The first time Ethan kissed her, it wasn't planned. They were sitting on his couch, Mila asleep down the hall, some documentary about ocean ecosystems playing on mute. Arya had been quiet all evening, staring at her phone like it might explode. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "Damien's sentencing hearing is tomorrow." "I know. I don't think I can go." "You don't have to. The prosecutors have everything they need." Arya shook her head. "I should be there. I should watch him face consequences." "Why?" "Because—" She stopped, frustration flickering across her face. "Because I need to see it end. I need to know it's really over. It's already over, whether you're in that courtroom or not. It doesn't feel over." Ethan shifted to face her. What would make it feel over? Arya thought about that. "I don't know. Closure, maybe? Some kind of proof that I'm not still that scared girl he controlled for 3 years. You're not her anymore." "How do you know?" "Because she wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. She'd still be making excuses for him." Arya's eyes filled with tears. "I hate that you're right. Get used to it." She laughed despite herself, wiping her face. "I'm a mess." "Yeah, but you're a mess who took down a corrupt executive and reclaimed her entire life, so I'd say you're doing pretty well." Arya looked at him then, really looked, and something in her expression changed. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not running away when things got complicated. Things were already complicated when I met you. And you stayed anyway." "Yeah, I did." They sat there in the dim light, the documentary still playing silently, rain drumming against the windows. And then Arya leaned forward and kissed him. It was tentative, uncertain, like she was testing whether this was allowed. Ethan kissed her back, gentle and unhurried, letting her set the pace. When they finally pulled apart, Arya's face was flushed. "Sorry," she whispered. "I should have asked first. Don't apologize." "Was that okay?" "Yeah, that was okay." She smiled, small and fragile but real. "Good, because I've been wanting to do that for weeks." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared you'd realize I'm not worth the trouble." Ethan tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're worth the trouble, Arya." "I don't know how you can say that." "Because it's true." She kissed him again, less uncertain this time. And for a moment, everything else fell away. The trial, the fear, the weight of the past 3 years. It was just them. Figuring it out. Making mistakes.
trying anyway. When they finally called it a night, Arya stood at the door, jacket in hand, looking back at him.
I think I'm falling for you, she said quietly. Ethan's heart kicked against his ribs. Yeah? Yeah, and it terrifies me. Good. She frowned. Good?
If it didn't scare you, it wouldn't matter. Arya stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll see you tomorrow? I'll be here. She left, and Ethan stood in the doorway watching her car disappear down the street. Behind him, a small voice said, You kissed her. Ethan turned. Mila was standing in the hallway, pajamas rumpled, hair sticking up in every direction. You're supposed to be asleep. I got thirsty, and then I saw you kissing the sad lady. Mila grinned. Does that mean she's your girlfriend now? I don't know yet. Do you want her to be? Ethan thought about the question. 6 months ago, he would have said no without hesitation. His life was simple, controlled, safe, but now? Yeah, he admitted. I think I do. Mila nodded seriously. Good, because she makes you smile more. And she's nice to me. And I think she needs us. Out of the mouths of 6-year-olds.
I think we need her too, Ethan said quietly. Mila hugged him. Then you should tell her that. I will. Now go back to bed. She ran off, and Ethan stood alone in the hallway, feeling the weight of what he'd just admitted settling over him. He was falling for Arya Bennett, and for the first time in 6 years, that didn't scare him. It just felt right.
Damian Vale was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Arya didn't attend the hearing. She watched the news coverage from Ethan's couch, Mila sitting beside her, and when the verdict came through, she cried. Not from grief, not from anger, from relief. It's really over, she whispered. Ethan sat on her other side. Yeah, it is. 8 years. He'll serve 5 with good behavior, maybe less. Arya shook her head. I don't care anymore. He can't touch me now. That's all that matters. Mila reached over and patted her hand. You're very brave. Arya looked down at the little girl beside her, eyes bright. Thank you, Mila. My daddy says brave people are just scared people who don't give up. Your daddy's very smart. I know, Mila beamed. He's the best. That night, after Mila went to bed, Arya and Ethan sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker through the rain. I got an offer today, Arya said quietly. Ethan glanced over. What kind of offer? From a startup in San Francisco. They want me to head their AI ethics division. Good salary. Full creative control. Equity package. That's huge. It is. So why do you sound uncertain? Arya was quiet for a moment. Because taking it means leaving Seattle, leaving everything I've built here, and leaving me. She met his eyes. Yeah, that too. Ethan felt something twist in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Is that what you want? To go? I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be good. A fresh start somewhere new. No memories of Damien, no reporters, just clean slate. And the other part? The other part wants to stay. Because for the first time in my life, I actually feel like I belong somewhere. She looked down at her hands. I feel like I belong here. With you. With Mila. Ethan reached over and took her hand. Then stay. It's not that simple. Why not? Because we've only been together for a few months. What if this doesn't work out? What if I turn down this opportunity and we fall apart 6 months from now and I'm stuck here with nothing? What if we don't fall apart? You can't promise that. No, I can't. Ethan turned to face her fully. But I can promise I'm not going anywhere. I can promise I'll show up every day and figure this out with you. And I can promise that if you stay, it won't be for nothing. Arya's breath hitched. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you, Arya, and I want you to stay. Not because you're running from something, but because you're choosing something. Choosing us. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Then take your time. But don't run just because you're scared. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, I love you too. Yeah? Yeah. She laughed, wiping her eyes. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I love you. Ethan pulled her close and she buried her face in his shoulder. I'll stay.
she said quietly. I'll turn down the offer. I'll stay here. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Ethan smiled against her hair. That's the spirit.
They sat there for a long time, wrapped up in each other, listening to the rain. And somewhere in the distance, the city lights kept burning, proof that even in the darkest moments, something was always still glowing. 3 months later, Arya stood in front of a rundown office space in Capitol Hill, keys in hand, staring at the peeling paint and cracked windows. "This is it?" Ethan asked, stepping up beside her. "This is it. It's terrible. It's affordable." Arya smiled. "And it's mine." She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The space was small, maybe 800 square feet, with water stains on the ceiling and carpet that had seen better days. But the bones were good. High ceilings, good natural light, and most importantly, it was available immediately. "What are you going to call it?" Ethan asked, looking around. "Bennett Solutions." Straightforward. I spent 3 years hiding behind someone else's name. I'm done with that. Arya walked to the window, looking out at the street below. This is about building something that's actually mine, something that matters. What's the mission? Ethical AI development, building systems that protect people instead of exploiting them. She turned back to face him. The kind of work I always wanted to do, but never had the freedom to try. Ethan crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. I'm proud of you. I haven't done anything yet. You're here. That's everything. Arya held on to him, breathing in the smell of sawdust and possibility. 6 months ago, she'd been terrified, broken, convinced her life was over. Now she was standing in an empty office, planning a future she'd built with her own hands. It wasn't perfect. The road ahead would be hard, finding clients, hiring developers, building a reputation from scratch, while competing against established firms with unlimited resources. But it was hers, and that made all the difference. Over the next few weeks, Arya threw herself into the work. She registered the business, built a website, reached out to former colleagues who might be interested in freelance contracts. Ethan helped set up the security infrastructure, working late nights to make sure her servers were bulletproof. Mila helped too, in her own way. She drew logos, made Arya promise to name the company mascot after her, and insisted on being the official taste tester for the coffee machine. This one's too bitter, she'd announce, wrinkling her nose. That's because it's black coffee, sweetheart, Arya would say, laughing. Then you need better coffee. The launch party was small. Just a handful of friends, a few former Helios tech colleagues who'd stayed loyal, and a reporter from a local tech blog who'd been following Arya's story since the trial. Ethan stood in the back of the room watching Arya give her speech. She was nervous. He could tell from the way she kept adjusting her glasses. But her voice was steady. "A year ago, I didn't think I'd be standing here," she said. "I didn't think I'd have a career, or a future, or any reason to believe that things could get better." She paused, glancing toward Ethan. "But someone showed me that the hardest part isn't surviving the worst moments. It's believing you deserve to have good ones after." A few people clapped. Arya smiled. "So this company isn't just about building better technology. It's about building a better version of ourselves, one that refuses to be erased, one that fights for what's right even when it's terrifying, and one that remembers that we're stronger together than we ever could be alone." The applause was louder this time. Ethan felt something warm bloom in his chest. Pride, maybe? Or love? Probably both. After the speeches, Arya found him near the coffee station. "How'd I do?" she asked. "You were perfect." I stumbled over the third paragraph. "Nobody noticed." "I noticed." "Then you're the only one." Ethan handed her a cup of coffee. "You did good, Arya. Really good." She smiled, leaning into him. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Yeah, you could have. You just would have had to work harder." She laughed. Annoyingly confident, realistically stubborn. Across the room, Mila was showing anyone who'd listened the drawing she'd made of the company mascot, a cartoon robot wearing glasses and holding a shield with the words, "Protect People," emblazoned across it. "She's amazing," Arya said, watching her. "She likes you a lot." "I like her too." Arya looked up at Ethan. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life now, that I get to have this." "You earned it." "Did I?" Or did I just get lucky that you decided to help me? Luck had nothing to do with it. You made a choice to fight back, to rebuild, to believe you deserved better. Ethan kissed the top of her head. That's all you, Arya. She held on to him, feeling the truth of his words settle into her bones. For so long, she'd believed that survival meant making yourself small, invisible, safe. But she'd learned something in the past year. Real survival meant taking up space, building something that mattered, believing you had the right to exist fully, even when the world tried to convince you otherwise. And maybe most importantly, it meant letting people in, trusting that not everyone would hurt you, that some people would actually stay. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. They stood there for a moment, wrapped up in each other, the party buzzing around them. And for the first time in her life, Arya felt something she'd never truly believed was possible. She felt whole. Ethan proposed 6 months later. Not at some fancy restaurant, not with a big production. He did it on a Tuesday night, after they'd put Mila to bed and were sitting on the couch eating leftover pizza and arguing about which documentary to watch. Marry me, he said, right in the middle of her explanation of why ocean documentaries were superior to space documentaries. Arya stopped mid-sentence. What? Marry me, Ethan repeated. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want you here, officially, forever. Arya stared at him, eyes wide. You're serious? Yeah. We've only been together for a year. I know. I'm still a mess half the time. I know that too. And you still want to marry me? Yeah, Arya, I do. She laughed, tears streaming down her face. You don't even have a ring. I have a ring. It's in the drawer. I couldn't wait anymore. He stood, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver band with a small diamond. Nothing extravagant, just clean and honest and real. It's perfect, Arya whispered. So is that a yes? Yes. Yes, of course it's a yes. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger and she kissed him hard, tasting salt and pizza and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, Arya was laughing. Mila's going to lose her mind, she said. She's been asking me when I was going to propose for the past 3 months. What? She told me you were taking too long to become her official mom, and I needed to hurry up. Arya covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking with laughter. I can't believe I'm marrying into this family. Too late. You already said yes. I know, and I don't regret it. They told Mila the next morning over breakfast. She screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard. Finally, she shouted, throwing her arms around Arya. I've been waiting forever. It's been a year, sweetheart, Ethan said. That's forever when you're 6. Arya hugged her back, overwhelmed. You're okay with this? Are you kidding? I get to be in the wedding. I get to wear a fancy dress. And I get to call you Mom. Arya's breath caught. You want to call me Mom? Mila pulled back, suddenly uncertain. Is that okay? If you don't want me to... No, it's... Arya wiped her eyes quickly. It's more than okay. I'd be honored. Mila beamed and went back to her cereal, chattering about what color dress she wanted to wear. Ethan reached across the table and took Arya's hand. She squeezed back, unable to speak. This was her family now, not perfect, not without complications, but real and loving and hers. Chakets. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with Rebecca and a handful of friends as witnesses. No big production, no cameras, no stress, just 2 people choosing each other in front of the people who mattered most. Mila was the flower girl. She took her job very seriously, marching down the aisle with perfect posture and a basket of rose petals she'd picked out herself. When the judge asked if they had vows, Ethan went first. I'm not good with words, he said, looking at Arya, but I'm good at showing up. And I promise to keep showing up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Arya's turn. She'd written something down but forgot it entirely the moment she looked at Ethan. You saved my life, she said quietly, not because you caught me that night on the terrace, but because you made me believe I was worth catching, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving you right. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The judge pronounced them married, and Ethan kissed her while Mila cheered. The reception was a backyard barbecue at their house, because somewhere along the way, Arya had moved in and it had stopped being just Ethan's place and become theirs. Friends mingled, music played. Mila ran around with the other kids, showing off her flower girl dress to anyone who'd listen. And as the sun started to set, Arya found herself standing at the edge of the yard, watching it all unfold. Ethan came up beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, just taking it in." "Having regrets?" "Not even a little bit." She leaned into him. "I'm just thinking about how different my life is now. A year and a half ago, I was convinced I'd never be free of Damien, that I'd spend the rest of my life scared and small and invisible. And now? Now I have a company, a family, a future that's actually mine." She looked up at him. "Now I have you." Ethan kissed her forehead. "You always had you, Arya. I just reminded you to look." She smiled. "Realistically stubborn." "Always." They stood there watching the party, Mila's laughter carrying across the yard, the Seattle sky turning pink and gold above them. And Arya thought about all the moments that had led her here, the terror, the shame, the nights she'd wanted to give up, but also the small victories, the choice to keep fighting, the people who'd stayed when it would have been easier to leave. She thought about the girl she'd been a year and a half ago, terrified, erased, convinced she didn't deserve to take up space in the world. And she thought about the woman she was now, scarred, but whole. Building a life that mattered, choosing love over fear every single day. It wasn't a fairy tale. There was no magic fix, no moment where everything suddenly became perfect. But it was real, and real was so much better than perfect ever could be. Cool. 2 years later, Bennett Solutions had grown to 20 employees and contracts with 8 major firms. Arya's work had been featured in tech journals. She'd spoken at conferences. Built a reputation as someone who actually cared about doing the right thing in an industry that rarely rewarded ethics over profit. It wasn't easy. There were still hard days, days when the panic came back, days when she questioned whether she deserved any of this. But those days were fewer now, farther apart. And when they came, she had people to help her through them. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, Arya and Ethan took Mila to the aquarium, the trip they'd postponed all those months ago when everything with Damien had exploded. Mila pressed her face against the glass, watching jellyfish drift through the water like living galaxies. "They're so pretty," she breathed. "They are," Arya agreed. "Do you think they know they're pretty?" "I don't think they think about it. They just exist." Mila considered this. That must be nice, not worrying about what other people think. Arya glanced at Ethan, who was trying not to laugh. "Where'd you hear that?" Arya asked. "Aunt Becca. She says people worry too much about being perfect instead of just being themselves." "Aunt Becca's very smart." "I know, she's almost as smart as you." This time, Ethan did laugh. They spent the afternoon wandering through the exhibits, Mila asking a million questions about octopi and sharks and sea turtles. On the drive home, she fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted and happy. "She's getting so big," Arya said quietly. "I know. It's terrifying." "Think we're doing okay with the parenting thing?" Ethan glanced at her. "You're doing great." "I have no idea what I'm doing half the time." "Neither do I, but she's happy. She's loved. That's what matters." Arya looked back at Mila, sleeping peacefully, and felt something settle in her chest. This was her life now. Not the one she'd imagined, not the one she'd planned, but the one she'd fought for, built, chosen. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything. That night, after Mila was in bed, Arya sat at the kitchen table working on a presentation for a new client. Ethan was beside her, reviewing security protocols for an upcoming contract. It was mundane, ordinary, the kind of quiet domestic scene she'd never thought she'd have. And yet here she was. "Can I ask you something?" Arya said, not looking up from her laptop. "Sure. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't been at that gala? If you'd left before Damien cornered me on the terrace?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, but not in the way you think." "What do you mean?" "I think you would have found a way out eventually. Maybe not that night, maybe not the way we did it, but you're stronger than you give yourself credit for." "I didn't feel strong back then. Strength isn't about how you feel, it's about what you do when everything's falling apart." Ethan closed his laptop. And you kept going, even when it hurt, even when it would have been easier to give up. Arya thought about that. I wanted to give up, so many times. But you didn't. That's what matters. She looked at him, really looked, and felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You don't have to thank me for that.
Yes, I do. Because not everyone would have stayed. Not everyone would have cared. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. I stayed because you were worth staying for, and I'd make the same choice every time. Arya squeezed his hand, unable to speak, because that, right there, was the truth she'd spent most of her life searching for. That she was worth staying for, worth fighting for, worth loving. Not because she was perfect, not because she had it all figured out, but simply because she existed, because she was human, because she deserved to take up space in a world that had spent so long trying to erase her. And learning that, truly believing it, had changed everything. It had given her the courage to leave, to fight back, to build something new. It had given her a family, a future, a life that felt like hers. And most importantly, it had given her herself back, not the version Damien had tried to create, not the scared girl who'd spent 3 years making herself smaller, but the real Arya, the one who'd always been there, buried under layers of fear and shame and survival, the one who was brave enough to keep trying, who built beautiful things, who loved fiercely and fought harder. That Arya, the one who'd been worth saving all along. Later that night, as they got ready for bed, Ethan caught her staring at herself in the bathroom mirror. What are you thinking about? He asked. Arya smiled. Just remembering. Remembering what? Who I used to be. And who I am now. She turned to face him. And being grateful that I didn't give up before I got here. Ethan pulled her close. Me too. They stood there in the quiet, holding each other, the Seattle rain drumming softly against the windows. And in that moment, everything felt exactly right. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And because they'd fought for it, together, the way it should be.